Sorry about that, everyone. I just want to let Geeta ji know that sorry, I'm just trying to locate Geeta ji. Please give me a second, please.
Just send her. Yes, I'm going to do that. I'll turn off commenting. Sorry. Geeta ji,
I'm so sorry.
No, I think sometimes when you get a call or you get a message on your phone, the volume will go off.
I put it on do not disturb mode or whatever.
Yeah,
But anyway.
airplane mode is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were talking to me about responding to music, and we were on that point.
Yes. So I think this is one aspect which worries me about today's dancers, because they do so much of practice on recorded music that, sometimes it takes away when they perform live. They don't really react and get the energy from them. When our seniors used to perform, we used to see a lot of the energy give and take in the thing, and I used to enjoy always performing live, simply because the musician brought that quality, and you kind of translated, and on that you created your own imagination. So that is something that I feel there's a big change in today's scene, because everything is so நூல் பிடிச்ச மாதிரி இருக்கணும். It should be so performance should be like a so set.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I see a dancer, I myself feel, is the dancer really bored of over rehearsing?
Okay.
That I feel that she's not excited about what she's doing. Then there has to be that ambiguity, on stage, where you could make a mistake, but you could also get into 100%. Unless you leave that room for negotiation, it will never cross a 60%.
Right. But over rehearsal and sadhana are not the same, right?
Not at all. Over rehearsal, I think, is counterproductive in a sense, because it kills the creativity. You set everything to such a degree that you for me, for example, I have 6 or 7 versions of a Nadana Madinar. I have learnt it when I was at 9 or 10, and with each teacher I have reinvented Nadana Madinar according to my frame of reference as I am growing as an artist.
Right.
So I revisit the piece every few years. So so I think that's the joy of that's what we learned from the Nattuvanars. They would say, setrikemma pari, if it works. If it doesn't work, we can always change it around. So that quality of always creating, then again doing something. So I think that makes practice very, very enjoyable. Practice cannot be draconian, and practice cannot be something that is seen as a must do, or it should not be triggered by peer pressure, or by some kind of an inner guilt. These are not the things why you practice.
Correct.
Practice has to come as something that you enjoy, something that you learn every time you're doing something that you discover each time you're doing a movement. I kick myself many times and I say, why didn't I discover this before about this movement? You know, so practice has to be discovery. Practice has to be fun. Practice has to be joyous. So I sometimes feel this sweating it out is all very good, but you know, it has to be accompanied. If you want to have lambe race ka ghoda, what you say, you know, if you have to target a long race, you have to engage in every aspect of the dance.
Like vision over visibility, right? Yeah. Vision over
you know, so
visibility.
it can't be just a monochromatic thing that you do.
Absolutely.
It has to have all the nuances. It has to have all the colors, all the rasas. You know, so nothing time is also important for riyaz.
Right.
You just sit and think. You just ponder. You know, you just listen. You just read. All this engagement is all part of riyaz. Riyaz doesn't mean every time doing a tattai taha taihat taihi is not, or doing a margam is not only riyaz. Riyaz has so many other things, you know, that that makes the whole interesting, the whole process interesting. You know?
Correct. Geeta ji, so in a sense, sadhana itself, from whatever I understand, is a sort of a mature emotion. It's something that, you know, it's like it happens it's like a turning point for a dancer, when a dancer recognizes that this is not merely just practice, this is a sadhana of sorts, right? And you also use the word
I think, yes, questioning. And also I think the dance has to become your own vocabulary.
Yeah.
You see, you learn something, then the teacher, of course, has to customize it for you. Because, you know, many movements I see, when I see the two dancers with different body types dancing, I have to customize movement. Right. You see? So that is leading them into finding their own voice. You see? So one size fits all doesn't work. What works for one can never work for the other. Right. Imitating, copying just cannot work. You have to find your own language. It's like writing, Akila. You write, you know that. You develop your own style of writing, don't you? Otherwise, why would you be different from somebody else?
Right.
So I always ask my kids, why should somebody come and watch Bharatanatyam? We have to question ourselves. We always crib that there is no audience, there is no audience.
Correct.
Shouldn't we think? Why? Many times people tell me that Bharatanatyam is boring. I kind of agree. Bharatanatyam is boring. Yes, it is boring. Why? Because it's become same. It's become monochromatic. You know, the same kind of thing is happening. Earlier, you had these gurus and you had these gharanas, and you knew exactly what to expect when you went to a Varivur school. You knew you would have those beautiful jatis, you would have that beautiful grace, you would have those stances suddenly like Kamala. You know, you knew what to expect. You go to a Muthuswami Pillai style, you knew what to expect. You went into a Kittappa Pillai style, you knew what to expect. So, you know, now when you see the jatis are all the same, they are all by the mridangists. So, you know, there is the sameness in the sound, in the kanak, in the mathematics. So I feel that, you know, that variety of styles and variety of expression, how will it come back? Unless we train our students to get their own language, to get their own inner self, to express their inner self, which is their own, through the medium of dance. That is a long process. There is no shortcut. It's a very long process. You learn a thing, the teacher customizes it, then you practice it over a period of time, then you keep doing the regular margam, and then you slowly start and explore. So but then today, you know, the problem is also that the youngsters don't get enough opportunity to do a margam. Before that, they are asked, what is new? Have you composed anything yourself? You know, so these kinds of questions are asked so often that the pressure to do something on their own, even if they don't feel the urge to create. They are very happy doing the margam and exploring the margam. You know, the margam needs many years of exploration before you can step out of the margam.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
so stepping out of the margam can be very fashionable, but at what point in time do you do it?
Make that.
It's very crucial. It's very
Yeah.
important.
Absolutely. Geetaji, what is the role of a teacher, of a guru, in being able to help a student discover or deep dive into her sadhana or her or his sadhana? What is the role of the guru in doing that?
This lockdown has taught me a lot because I've started teaching. All my classes have moved to Zoom. And I realized that I cannot have the same kind of class that I had here. So the entire pedagogy has changed. I had to think a lot. I brought in lectures. I brought in a lot of reading. I brought in a lot of abhinaya because that was easier to teach. Lot of talking to the students, which I never did in a class, I realized. You know, I realized as a teacher, I needed to talk a lot, you know, and they used to in fact feel that, oh, you're lecturing there and here, but you're not talking to us. Because we get so preoccupied with tangible benefits out of a class. Ayyo, in the item mudikinume, adu mudichidnom, you know. So there is this pressure when you are in class to kind of also you feel if you don't teach something new, maybe they get demotivated. Let me carry on, you know. And in 1 hour, 1.5 hours, how much can you do?
Yeah.
So this time, you know, they are really enjoying it because I'm talking to them, I'm dialoguing with them, I'm asking them to write, I'm sharing things like just day before yesterday, I shared that beautiful quote of Balama who has, described the Margam as a ritualistic temple, you know, where she enters with the Alaripu from the Parikrama, and she goes, a beautiful one, which we had read when we were young, and I could see stars in their eyes, you know, and then I told all of them to write a paragraph on what they feel after reading this. So I think this is what I'm saying, you know, writing, critiquing, dialogue, communication, all this makes them think more. That's all. It's not the skill. They might not tomorrow go to a paper and write, but all this introspection makes them think about dance, makes them really, you know, and analyze what they're doing and why they're doing.
Right.
So I think this lockdown has really made me think as a teacher, are we doing enough? You know, we need to do much more, and there can be lots of things there where we can bring in. Of course, you know, iconography we took on, and all the sculptures we discussed, and we discussed Kapilaji's book. So there were lots of things that we've been doing, and I think that's engaging them much more than because just doing a regular class, because they have time to think. They have that window now to think. So we put all these seeds into their heads, then, you know, they think about it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Geetaji, because even I've been noticing that there is a sort of the focus is sort of shifted towards learning, right? I notice that people are trying to, you know, learn new things, learn new skills.
Yes.
And even though everybody's complaining about being busy, everybody's sort of opened their minds to learning. I feel a lot of people, including me, I feel like I want to be a student again. I want to learn a new skill.
Yes,
you know?
yes. I think it's a great time to do that, because you're catching up on a lot of things you wanted to do, but you never got down to doing. You know, many people are cooking, for example. I mean, that's something that they didn't find the time to do earlier, and now they're all doing it and enjoying eating it also with their families. So I think that's something that's another thing in this context is that I think the teaching has become a little confusing because there's too much of inputs from all sides. Sometimes it gets cacophony, you know. So much is being told to a young student. That's why I think in the older times, the teachers used to say, "Vere dance ella paakade, ide pannindu va." You know, that used to be, seen as close things. But then the fact is, sometimes I see sense in it. Till you reach a certain stage, be on track and be focused. Learn one form of expression fully. After that, you can go and you can fly.
Yeah.
But now, this with the workshops and with so many people saying so many things in so many different platforms, I don't know what the head is going to be of these young dancers
I
and
know.
what are they going to take and retain and what they're, because it requires great intelligence to synthesize all this.
Right. Absolutely. It's overstimulation, right? Yeah.
Yeah, who is going to help them synthesize all this, So I feel information is all right, but how are they going to make that into knowledge? And how are they going to make that transition? And see what works for them and what they want to retain and what doesn't work for them. That sifting is very important, because I remember one instance when when we used to go to Kalandi Mami to learn Abhinaya, and Mami's was a very Mami used to sit and teach us, and we used to learn. And I used to always wonder, when people performed, the first half you had to was learnt from a Natavanar or a guru, and there was a lot of Angikam and all that. And suddenly, when it came to the Padam, it would become like this. So so there were very few who actually took the idea of Abhinaya from Mami and made it into a performance skill. You see, because it is one body saying the Varnam and the Padam. It's not two different bodies, and you can't have two different people saying speaking two different languages in the same program. So, that's synthesizing what you learn from two different teachers or two different, because now I also see that people have multiple teachers, So how do they synthesize what they are learning is a great skill, and very few have the intelligence to synthesize that. Otherwise, you are a confused head where you don't know. You say this item is that teacher's, this item is this teacher's, this item is from that workshop, this item. I mean, I would go mad if I had to do this kind of a thing,
Right.
Because how would you negotiate this? And then you can't put it in this because this teacher said it has not taught it like this. So this becomes, how do you then, I don't know, how these children actually negotiate. I would love to talk to one of these people who've gone through multiple things and ask them as to how do they really see this whole thing? How do they document it? How do they remember what they've learned from one teacher when they move to the next teacher? It's complex. It's very complex.
Right. Geeta, talk to us about how your sadhana was when you were growing up as a dancer, and when did you have that sort of that turning point when you knew that you had to kind of sort of make the transition from just being a dancer and like really pursue this with passion?
I think it was a process, because my first teacher never really taught dance as only a performance skill. She always wanted to create artists, because she herself was a complete artist. She could play the veena, she could give a full triya kacheri, she could dance. She was Tiger Varadachari's student, and my mother used to learn the veena from her. She was a very, very absolutely fantastic veena player. So when we saw that, we really felt unless you could do all this, you are not going to get anywhere. The bar was already raised. And my music teacher, Meera Sheshadri, used to sing for dance as well. So she used to always say in my music class also, "Ida bhavama paduma, bhavam irukano paatla." So, everything was connected, So it was not in silos really. So the music, the dance, the rhythm, everything was together. So I feel that learning has always stayed with me, and I've never been able to completely see dance as only for performance. It is something that's very close to my heart, and I do it on my own terms, the way I feel. I would never create a piece for somebody or to please somebody or, for a foreign audience. I see people saying that's the market, hence you create a piece so that you can, take it to that festival. Those kinds of things, I'm not geared like that. I'm not value judgment panala, but one is not wired like that because of my first learning. After that, I went to my next teacher, and I was pushed into performance craft. Dakshinamurthy sir was all about performance craft. It was just the opposite of my other earlier teacher. So, I suddenly was pushed into, and I enjoyed that because I was young, and this whole thing of performance, and pieces which we had never done earlier. Anga Amma you start with Alaripu, no Pushpanjali, nothing. And here you came, and the first class itself he says Tattodakatam, tan 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 din 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 Tattodanga. I was like, what's this? Very, very it was a complete shift for me. So that shift, I think, was nice because I had that base. Then the performance technique got added to this, and the fact that all my subsequent teachers respected my first teacher so much. That was also a blessing. They would always say, Akka solli thandada onnu pannade adu apdiye vachukko. They'd never meddle with it or never. In fact, they would ask me to again and again dance it, and they wanted to see it because they did not come from the Tanjavur tradition. So, they wanted to learn from that. Wherever I went, even when I went to Bombay to Malingam Pillai sir, he would say, Akka enna solli thanda adu andha padatha pannu nee enakku panni kaami. So, there was that respect for each other, and they really bonded so beautifully. So I think learning was that's what yesterday I was just when I was thinking about this whole thing, I said probably we are the last generation of dancers who have learned from Nattuvanars and not professional performing artists.
Yeah.
See, that's when dance changed, because after us, next generation are all dancer teachers who have been teaching.
Right.
So so there is that shift after 19. I would say in the 90s that shift happened,
Right.
and dance took a completely different shade because you saw one teacher, one Nattuvanar would teach 10 children, and nobody would do it the same way.
Still, right?
All 10 would do it differently. All 10 would do it differently. Dakshinamurthy sir had one Jatiswaram, and we'd all go and, we'd individually learn. And then when you go to the class and one class, we all do it together. Everybody had a different adabu pattern. Everybody had, because he would test his creativity all the time and, create things. And same Jati would be done in 10 different ways. And he says, "Idu ipdi pannalame, adu ipdi pannalame, apdi pannalame." So, so for us, like it is, no, that's why I said, again, yesterday I was thinking, when we say about transferring legacy, it's not items, it's the philosophy.
Yeah.
Legacy is transferred in terms of philosophy. It is not in terms of items. We have to understand this. The philosophy towards arts, that is what you pass on. Not, I don't want my items to be carried on by my students. That is never my idea. But they should be creative. They should just fly. That's the idea. So, the philosophies differ from person to person, what they want to, take forward. So I think also, what I have created in my 30s and 40s or in my 50s, I cannot teach to my students.
Correct.
I just cannot.
Yeah.
Because I think you need that maturity to do those pieces. So I feel that's why Dandayithapani had this beautiful first varnam. He would say, "Enna 8 வயசு 9 வயசு ஆத்துக்கு மோகமான சொல்லி கொடுத்துட்டு இருக்க, அன்னையை மறவாதேன்னு ஒரு வர்ணம் போட்டார் அவர். Just about your mother, அன்னையை மறவாதே. Just a varnam for little kids. So he said, let them learn first that, then go on to the Shringara pieces. And there is that level that you take in Abhinaya. Annai Maravadi easy Abhinay pannin poindirpa. But 8 year or 9 year Mohamana chuma kaiya pannu padi. Moha enna theriyum Mohamana. So I think these interesting things that different teachers looked at pedagogy, how they saw that it can be tweaked here, it can be changed around here. I think everybody in their own generation brings their own refinement to the art. And that was what was so beautiful about the tradition.
Right. Beautiful. I wanted to ask you two questions. One is sadhana. I keep coming back to that because that's the core of our discussion.
Yes.
Sadhana is it sometimes, can it ever be outcome oriented? That's number one. And number two,
Yes.
is it a sort of singular pursuit? Like, you can't just kind of be like waltzing all around and still say I'm doing my sadhana. Like, Could you explain that
You
idea?
know,
Like,
again, sadhana is different for different people for sure, but I feel it is a lonely journey because essentially Indian classical dance is a solo art form,
solo,
whatever you
yeah,
might say.
yeah,
It is a solo search of the soul for the Paramatma. So,
yeah,
that is the definition given, and that is the way we are taught the dance, that is the way we are practicing the dance. But I think I explored a lot and then came back to the solo. I'm
right,
now back to the solo. So I think, there are many things in the 90s and the early 2001 2 was all for me about collaborations, about doing something new, about doing with puppetry, doing with theater, doing with that, doing with this. I just felt so excited and driven by other art forms and to juxtaposing Bharatanatyam with that. So to the extent that many critics said, "Ay, namo pannindirka, Bharatanatyam pannindirka theriyadu." But at that time, I thought I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that feeling of wanting to collaborate, wanting to, today that has become the norm. That's a
no,
different thing. But, then that's another thing. I think you need to take risks.
right,
As an artist, you need to follow your heart. You
right,
need to take risks at points of time. If you feel strongly about something, go and do it. Don't worry. Idu pannina enakku music academy kadakkyado. This kind of thinking is very, very, I think, very, very myopic.
yeah,
It is not at all going to work. Whom are you trying to please? What is your goal? What is your aim? Is
right,
it to grow as an artist or get one program somewhere? I mean, that's something you need to decide for yourself.
right, right,
So, so that whole sadhana comes out of all these experiences which make you richer and which make you an artist who understands other art forms, who relates to a lot of other artists from other genres. And being in Delhi, I have learned so much from my colleagues, Odissi dancers, Kathak dancers. What is rigor for them? What is rigor for me?
yeah,
What is Abhinaya for them? What is Abhinaya for me? There's so much of dialogue that happens. We
right,
worked so much together. So I think all this makes you go towards sadhana. Because you also become much more. I feel much more inclusive.
right,
You need to be very inclusive, and I feel sometimes we do get very insular with our art form, and we
right,
are so inward looking that you need to open up a little more and see what's happening all around,
right,
and take from there. So then that makes you much more evolved from
yeah,
inside, which is
absolutely,
the whole idea, of Anekanta, which I did
did,
from
yeah,
Jaina philosophy,
I remember that,
which
yeah,
is about multiple realities. Everything is valid. You have a certain style that's equally valid and equally your own, and as creative as some other style which is doing something else in a certain way. So I think that acceptance, not really looking at something, unless you are a certain way, you are not going to be accepted. I think that philosophy I don't subscribe to. I have dancers of all sizes, and I think some of them are such fantastic dancers.
yes,
They do so beautifully, but I know they can never be commercial successes.
yeah,
But they are fabulous artists.
yeah, for
See?
sure, yeah, yeah,
So, but what is it? So, what is it? Art is art. You can't stop it. In fact, some of them they transcend the body, because the body is not their only resource.
yeah,
So they have to tap other things,
yeah,
to
maybe to, yeah,
communicate,
yeah,
and they do it so beautifully. So
correct,
I think all this needs to be understood, and to just say that you need to lose weight, otherwise you can't dance. I'm sorry. I mean, no. Everybody has a soul, and it's dancing. And you have to create space for everybody. And I think as long as they are dancing from their soul, and there are moments when you feel like crying, and when you feel it's like saying, "Wow, that's dance."
yeah,
You know?
lovely. Geetaji, I'm just going to take a couple of questions. There's one from Kashi. Hi, Kashi.
Yes.
He says, Geetaka, what has been your experience after being on your own, apart from your teachers?
Yes. I think even when I was with my teachers, they gave me space to be on my own.
Right.
You know, so Natavanats were like that. You want to do something, do it. I'll be there, but you can do what you want. So, being on my own was very, very nice because I had great support in terms of listening to lectures by Jeevan Pani ji, Saxena ji. They filled my head with so many ideas. And you could just make a phone call and say, मुझे ये संस्कृत का वर्ड समझ नहीं आ रहा है, आप जरा मुझे बता दीजिए. So, we had so many resources which we could tap and while creating. And then we had musicians who would just sit hours on end with us and patiently try multiple options. Today, it's like commissioning. You say, this is what I want. Please create it and give it. And it's sometimes done online or sometimes done from somewhere. That is not the creative process that we are used to. And we were fortunate and lucky at that time to be able to sit with a musician and while the music was created, the Nattavanar would sit also. Even though he had not much of a role, but he understood what was happening. So the team was on the same page. Yes. So I think, and the same when I think that the rhythm part was being negotiated, the musician would be sitting there and singing the line over and over again. Supposing you're doing an adavu pattern for a swaram, we would always see how is the ending and then try and match the ending with a korve that would lead to that ending. And then, the matching would happen. So there's so many things in the work process that we did as a team. And that's what was so beautiful when I went on my own, and when I started creating. But I had all those tools with me, which I had worked very hard, 20 years of music, already 25 years of dancing, and then lot of watching dance, lot of reading, lot of listening to lectures. I think all that also was responsible because I could tell the mridangist, ingeni indamari vasi. So, things like that, like in a shlokam, earlier a shlokam used to be loosely done. But now we play, I heard the pakhavaj playing and I was so fascinated by the pakhavaj playing. So I used to tell him, why can't we bring that kind of a playing in the mridangam? So I think that kind of a team effort in creating is something I really feel that we were blessed to have those kinds of musicians who had the patience, time, and a commitment, to do that kind of creative work. So I feel bad for the children because it's tough nowadays because it's become so expensive also to engage with musicians and to have that kind of a time and energy to create work.
Right. Geeta ji, I know that you are, also a musician, keen ear for music. How do you encourage your students to kind of, your dancers to actually develop that? Because that's really so important, right? Would you believe that a dancer also needs to be a musician in a sense?
I feel it's a must, but everybody doesn't have the bandwidth when they are studying because unfortunately all my students are academically very bright. What do I do? I always wonder, if they are very good in academics, they're very good in dance. So it's such a tussle to kind of, to make those choices and to keep them. So many of them are singers, but they're not really musicians of very trained quality, but they understand the cadence of music simply because in my dance class, I sing. Every class I sing. I do not make them dance to recorded music. Right. So when I'm singing a new Sangadi in a Varnam, they actually look at me and say, okay, at least that much, we are able to give. Otherwise, if they dance to recorded music, it's the same phrase, the same thing over and over again. So that was another advantage that all my teachers could sing. So when they came to class, they would sing. As Shruti box vechinde paadi na class edpa. So I do the same. However much my throat goes for a 6, again and again, you sing the same piece. And then I think when you talked about which I will do in my workshop,
Right.
is to take the same piece and do it in different pace.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because we have a set thing, sa ni da pa da ma ga re ne re sa ellarum kattupa.
Amma.
So what I make them do is I make the same jatiswaram they do in two different pace. So what happens is the body has to negotiate the piece, which means slow dancing is much more difficult than fast dancing.
Yeah.
So when they do the same phrase slow, they have to think how is the technique going to change for the slow, how is the technique, breath, everything going to change for the fast.
Yeah.
So this is part of the process of not seeing things as set or completely written in stone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see, you can play around with it. You know, you can change the pace, and the whole texture changes. Last and well, I think 3 classes back, I made them do the same Meera Bhajan sung by 2 different people, back to back.
Right.
I said, did you feel different?
Yeah.
See if you feel different. You know,
Oh,
so these are experiments which you need to constantly do. Make them aware of everything. Make
Yeah.
them aware of pace, of what the music is, how is it being sung. It's not good to say 4 times paadittu ni poite yaru vanna paadatu eppadi vanna paadatum. No,
Right.
what is that four times? What is that person going to sing, and how is that going to be translated into the dance?
Right.
I think very, very important.
Yeah, I just love this feel different, Geeta ji. You know, because in a sadhana, I wonder whether it's also possible that some days you feel different, right? And some days,
Of course.
yeah,
Of course, you know, some days, you know, you just, and you know, in sadhana, you end up going back to some key pieces which are very close to your soul.
correct.
And you want to do them over and over again. You know, I have that, I'm in that stage where I want to, I've done the whole thing of, you know, increasing the repertoire, doing that. And ultimately what you're left with is
That's
some pieces which are so close to you that you can dance it almost every day of your life and still feel so happy and contented.
it's like mother's food.
Absolutely.
No? It's like that. Yeah. You never get. It's like you keep returning to it. It's like coming home.
Yes. So when people say it's something new, I wonder, you know, why aren't they finding happiness in doing a piece over and over again? You know,
Revisiting, right?
the
Yeah.
whole thing in dance is reinforcement, and you know, finding newer things in the old.
Yeah, beautiful. Geeta ji, there's a question from Vinny Natakshatra who says, what's your opinion on whether a dancer should stick with her or his style dance form or can also learn different dance forms?
I think it's possible to learn multiple dance forms because we've grown up watching. Actually, they used to have two sets of orchestra. Sonalji used to perform Bharatanatyam and Odissi, and she used to have 2 sets of orchestra. Same way, Yamini, we used to go, Yamnyaka, we used to go, there used to be sometimes 3 sets of orchestra. She used to do Bharatanatyam, second section would be Kuchipudi, and third section would be Odissi. So, you know, I don't see any problem in that, but today it is becoming difficult because of the logistics also. You know, it's hard to give that kind of time and energy to each style. See, they did it with also a social reason, because at that time Kuchipudi was not being accepted. So they had to go on doing Kuchipudi with Bharatanatyam and saying this is equally valid and this should be accepted as a classical dance form. So there are a lot of other socio-political reasons why people did it. But today I think each style is so demanding and so highly competitive that a lifetime is not enough to really do one form well, and to do justice to it takes so much of energy and time that it's difficult to kind of do multiple styles and excel in all of them.
All of them, right. Geeta ji, I wanted to talk to you about, you know, I read just as I was gearing up for the interview about hard work and humility being the two core principles of sadhana. I'm just going to ask you about, by virtue of, a dancer and an artist, on this journey of sadhana, what are some of the life lessons? How does it actually transform you as a person, and why is that transformation
Yes.
really important? Because we're also,
I
we
think,
also,
yes, we are very scared of talking about our vulnerability.
Yeah.
We never we
Yeah.
never taught to
Yeah.
discuss. We're supposed to be superhuman. We're supposed to be superstars. We not have any flaws. We never. I've had a lot of problems. I've had a lot of health issues, but dance has been my, strength. So it depends on how you use the art form to overcome what you go through. So coming out of motherhood, after motherhood was one big problem where one had to negotiate postnatal blues, body going out of shape, all that thing one had. But I became slimmer than what I was before I conceived, Charanya. So you have to work hard at every point. And now this COVID, I don't know, I read more and more. They say there could be neurological problems, the hair fall, there could be so many things. The more you read, the more scared you get. But the moment the days I don't dance, I think I'm going to I go into depression. So if I dance, I feel happy. That day is, on a high, So I think it depends. Everybody has problems. And I think how you use it, how you deal with it, and how you use dance as therapy, and how you use dance as a strength to come out of all that is the challenge.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. So everybody has knee problems, everybody has issues, everybody has health problems. I think all that is part and parcel of life, and it just goes on. And how you negotiate with it, how you come out of it, how you talk about it. I think nobody's superhuman here, Everybody is in this very real world.
Right.
So I think which is stressful, which is difficult. So I think how the inner strength comes through your art form and how you use the art form as a strength. I think
Absolutely.
that is a big lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody says dance as therapy. I was just going to ask you one last question, Geetaji, before, we sign off. Is sadhana merely about, for an artist, is it merely about dance and other allied, aspects? Or is it also a sort of way of life?
Dance itself is a way of life for any serious dancer. It cannot be otherwise, because, Rajiv, my husband, always complains because middle of the night, 2 o'clock, I'm up with some idea in my head and I'm moving my legs and I'm, moving the bed. So, he's saying, what is this? Please, so you never switch off as an artist. You're constantly engaging with something or the other. You see a tree and you're trying to recreate a movement. You're trying to see how nature can impact you. You see a full moon and you're just gazing and sitting there. So as an artist, it's a way of life. Artists, 24/7 you're an artist. It's not only when you're in the studio you're an artist. I think it's a state of being. It's a state of mind. And unless you are that passionate, I don't think you can call yourself as engaging with the arts. I'm sure it is like that for a painter. I'm sure it is like that for a musician. So there is no specific place to dance. It's not as though if I'm in the studio only, I'm dancing. I'm suddenly seeing something, but my mind is, doing something else. And when we used to learn abhinaya in the we used to take a bus to come back, and in the bus we used to be revising the abhinaya bits, and so you are dancing throughout. You're dancing all the time with your mind. So I think there is no other way but to be your whole life has to be that.
Right. And also sadhana is so much about sticking with the habit, right?
Sticking with the habit and staying power. That's another thing with the youngsters. I think staying power, to be on the same track for a long time. It's not about the quickies that we're talking about. There
Right.
are no shortcuts. You have to stay in that path, take the highs and the lows. I always say people want professions where there are only highs, no lows. How can it be like that?
Right.
Every profession has its highs and lows. And
Right.
a long gestation period, unfortunately, in the arts. Nothing has come very, very easily. Unless we were, unless, no, until I think 36 or 37, we never got to go out on an ICCR tour, or we never, it's only in the 40s that things materialize. You have to stay the course till then. So, there is no jumping. You can't really jump things. There is that thing of staying the course.
Right. But Geetaji, in a world which is so where like we rightly spoke about, like so much stimulation, information overload, do you think youngsters have the time, energy, to actually engage in sadhana the way all of you did? I mean, I'm just wondering, like, it's a very different
I
world,
think
right?
it will be a different. I think it will be a different kind of sadhana, because many of them are multitasking, and
Yeah.
when you multitask and when you come to dance, there is a separate kind of commitment that I see, because you are denied that for that time when you're doing something else, but when you come here during that time, you're so focused. And it's wonderful to see that. So I think it will be a different kind of definition of sadhana and definition, because nothing is going to remain the same. Everything has to change. Change is the only constant. We all know that. So I think expecting them to be like us, or expecting us to be like our earlier seniors is really not the same, because times have changed, and we have to see the reality that arts cannot keep your kitchen fires burning. Many of them will be doing a lot of other things and dancing. So I think it's going to be a different kind of a sadhana that they're going to engage in.
But sadhana nonetheless. There's just one.
Nonetheless, sadhana. In
Yeah.
fact, I find there's more of a struggle, because we had the luxury of staying in one thing for
Correct.
so long. They have to do that and do this as well. And that
Right.
is quite a strain, quite a stress,
Yeah.
but we expect the same kind of level and caliber from them.
Absolutely.
So it's very hard. It's very hard.
Right.
Or else you should have, um, uh, all the time have a mentor with you who is kind of helping you. That's why I handhold my students to a large degree, because simply I feel that they are making that extra effort to do so much and still be so committed to the arts. I think it's my duty as a teacher to also reach
Right.
out
In
and
fact, there was
be
a
there for
question
them.
on that, Geetaji. There was a question from Dancing Dentist. He says, has Geetaji seen that state of sadhana in her students despite academics?
Yes, yes, of course, of course. I think I'm very happy. Many of them are extremely sensitive. I should say that would be the word.
Yeah.
Extremely sensitive, extremely nuanced. That would be the word. Very nuanced, and they look for that extra quality in the arts. That's something that is intangible. You can't
Yeah.
even describe
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely.
So that rasa, that
Yeah.
quality,
Yeah.
you know so in a class, if I see that even in a fleeting moment, the day is made for me. So because this is not something that a state of mind where you can be in for long.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
transient,
Absolutely.
you see. So I can see that moment coming and going, and I see, I am very happy. I just feel, yes, this
That's
is the course.
beautiful. I think sadhana itself is sort of a seeking the intangible, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and nobody can define it. Nobody can, put it in words. It just is something that you just experience it. And as I said, it is not. You can't stay in it for long.
For long. Yeah.
It just comes and it just engulfs you, and
Yeah.
then you are suddenly, it's like the gopis in Vrindavan. That very very fleeting moment where divinity comes in, and there is that the moment they see, and then it's all gone. They also forget it, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
um, so that
Yeah.
that kind of thing, you know.
But thank you so much, Geeta ji, for sharing so many lovely ideas and insights. I really truly appreciate it. And just for those who don't know, Sadhana with Purpose, a workshop by Geeta Chandran ji, is scheduled for August 1st. And if you go to the Alap Concepts page, you can there's a link that you can sort of sign up and register for the workshop. Thank you so much, Geeta ji. Please stay safe.
Thank you,
And thank you for
thank
being
you,
so
Anita.
inspiring and sharing your story with all of us. It was truly
Thank
so
you,
like fantastic that you came out and you told us what you went through. It was truly very heartwarming, and more power to you.
thank you so much.
All
Thank you,
right. Thank
Akila.
you for everybody who tuned in. All the best. Good night. Stay safe.